Hello everyone, Jeff here with you for episode number 12 of the Wednesday Night Wrestling Blitz here on YouTube. It is a GMTE Express add-on as we look at NXT and AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite and figure out which show I thought had the better action for the week. Let's get right into the action here. We'll start with AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite first. It took place from the American Bank Center in Corpus Christi, Texas. The crowd, I will say, for Corpus Christi standards, they were pretty good here. I know typically in the past they have not always been the best when it comes to crowds' response and reaction, especially when a WWE show was. But they were pretty good here from start to finish. They opened right away with tag team competition. Of course, this was a commercial-free match for television purposes. We had the Lucha Bros, Pentagon and Rey Fenix. They took on Kenny Omega and Hangman on a page here. Great. I thought this was a pretty good match. Great stuff here from these guys to get it going. Of course, the idea was to keep an eye on Omega and Page after the miscommunication last week when Page did the blind tag to get the win for his team after Omega had hit the V trigger. They actually had gelled pretty well together here throughout the match until the end. Omega had held Pentagon for Page to hit the buckshot lariat late in the match, but Pentagon ducked and inadvertently hit Kenny Omega with it. Page was ultimately tossed to the outside, and Pentagon had hit the package power driver with Phoenix doing the stump off the top rope to pin Kenny Omega here. So the Lucha Bros get a big win here. So after we get all that and we see, we get ready to see Omega and maybe Page getting ready to go for blows here. Pac shows up on the screen. He addresses Omega. He wants to remind him who he is. We see Pac go into the dressing room where Michael Nakazawa is. He has his back turned, of course, with the headphones on so he doesn't hear. And then we don't see what happens because Pac closes the door. They want you to believe there's an attack going on. Omega runs out after him. We see Omega going backstage looking for him. Phoenix hits him with a pipe, and then the Lucha Bros do a number on him until Page came back to make the save. And then ultimately, once the Lucha Bros leave, Pac and Omega continued their search, and that's where it ended up. Clearly, it looks like they're setting up for a Page heel turn. I'm going to talk about that. Maybe what he might be doing here coming up shortly. Tag team action was up next. We had Darby Allin and Cody Rhodes teaming up this time to take it on the Butcher and the Blade. Of course, Bunny's out there with them, the former Ali. Ali, a.k.a. the Bunny here, would try to get involved here several times throughout the match. Late in the match, we see Darby Allin hit a impressive-looking coffin drop onto the Butcher on the ring apron. It looked pretty brutal, if you asked me. That was ultimately enough, because Cody had gotten beaten down for a long time. Allin came in, he was a house of fire, and that led to the coffin drop. And then ultimately, in the end, Cody was able to win the match for his team after he hit a Cody cutter onto the Blade and got the win, which was a bit of a surprise here. And of course, the stipulation was, should Allin and Cody win, Allin would get the rematch against Cody from that match they had a while ago where it ended in a draw. So that will be happening at some point down the line. They did show respect after the win. It just surprised me that you would beat the Butcher and the Blade here in just their second match. I get they wanted to protect Cody, which is fine. And I know they beat Cody and QT Marshall last week when QT Marshall took the fall. You want to keep the Butcher and the Blade strong unless they're not going to be around long term. These are MJF's hired guns, and I thought it just made them look weak here. Just my opinion, to have them lose in their second match. So they went for 50-50 booking with Cody's team getting the win this week. We had a backstage promo prior to the next match. Brandy Rhodes, of course, talking about this collective nightmare faction that she's formed, which I'm not a fan of the name, by the way, and not really warming up to this faction at all. She's basically talking about wanting to get Chris Statlander to come home. She wants her alien to come home. We see this faceless bald guy once again. And I saw that Brian Zane over on his podcast, or not on his YouTube channel, he says it's Dr. Luther. I'm going to take him for his word. Dr. Luther is someone who's been in the wrestling industry a long time. So I take Brian Zane at his word. He says it's Dr. Luther, and I'm willing to say that it probably is him. So we had that. So Awesome Kong has a match against a jobber that goes by the name of Miranda Alizé. Not a whole lot to it here. This is a squash. Awesome Kong won. Pretty short order here with a variation of the Dominator, and then ultimately in the end, they did the deal where they cut off a piece of her hair to add to their collection. So apparently this Nightmare Collective has a fetish for collecting hair, so we had that. Next up was the 10-minute challenge here with Jungle Boy and Chris Jericho here. Jungle Boy came out attacking early on, going for quick pins and other high-flying moves. Jericho went for an early lion tamer, but he couldn't get it done. Jake Hager gets involved at ringside. He takes out Jungle Boy into the guardrail. Luchasaurus and Hager ultimately get into it. Marco Stunt tried to catch Hager with a surprise, but he got caught and got nailed with an elbow. It looked like he knocked him out. Aubrey Edwards ultimately ejects the outsiders from both teams out to the back, so it's one-on-one competition. Ultimately, Jericho did hit a powerbomb with about 90 seconds or so left, and then he locked in the lion tamer right after that, and he held it on until the end. Jungle Boy tried to escape a few times, but Jericho did the deal by pulling back and sitting down deeper. Jungle Boy just kind of held on until time ran out, and that was it. So it ends in a draw. So Jungle Boy does the deal by lasting the 10 minutes. Jericho is upset. He wants 5 more minutes. He goes out to tell Justin Roberts to give him 5 more minutes. We get the bell that rang, but it was later determined this was not official. Jungle Boy did some more stuff to get near falls before Jericho ultimately took his belt and left. So they had that. Now, while they were in a commercial, they did the picture-in-picture deal, which I'm not a fan of because they really are mistiming these pretty badly. Jericho ultimately did run back out and begin destroying the ringside area and then yelled at Jungle Boy's family, who we saw pictured before the match and a couple times during the match. So it was pretty much inevitable that Jungle Boy was going to last the 10 minutes. It was pretty obvious. Afterwards, Jericho is being interviewed by Tony Schiavone. They do this little back-and-forth deal where Schiavone says that Jericho said that Jungle Boy couldn't last 10 minutes, and then Jericho says that he couldn't beat him in 10 minutes. They do this little back-and-forth deal until Jericho calls Tony Schiavone Schiavone and tells him to get away from him. Then, of course, Jericho is then talking about Jon Moxley, wants him to join the Inner Circle, waiting for the answer, and he'll give him until January 1st, which will be the next time they'll be on television, since next week will be on Christmas, and they won't be on the air next week. And they say they'll have a big surprise for him if he decides to join and say yes. I think we all know where this is going. So we'll see where it goes from there. We had an SCU backstage promo going on next. Of course, they're hyping up their upcoming main event match with the Young Bucks later on in the show. Pentagon and Phoenix interrupt with Pentagon saying he doesn't think that Christopher Daniels has it anymore. They show him this video of the botch from a few weeks ago that Daniels had done. And then we see Frankie Kazarian and Scorpio Sky trying to encourage Christopher Daniels to say that he does have what it takes, but instead he just walks away. So that's kind of interesting. We'll see where that goes from here going forward. We had a number 1 contenders match for the AEW Women's title. Next, we had Chris Statlander taking on Britt Baker here. I didn't think this was a very good match, in all honesty. I thought this was easily the weakest match on the show again. And it's nothing against Statlander. I thought Statlander was fine. Britt Baker, I don't know what's going on with Britt Baker here. She started to show some signs of improvement here a few weeks ago, but she's kind of reverted back here again. Baker tried to go for the lockjaw early, but Statlander was able to counter out of it, and then a lot of back and forth. I thought the match was just kind of clunky and sloppy at times, but ultimately in the end, Statlander actually got the win. Britt had gotten her into the lockjaw, but Statlander powered out of it and actually reversed it into what is referred to as the Big Bang Theory, which is the Cradle Tombstone Power Driver, and actually got the win on Britt Baker. So she is the number 1 contender to face Rhea, who we saw in the crowd. They showed a shot of her, which I was not a fan of. I hate that shot, by the way. They just seem to be doing that now. Afterwards, Brandi Rhodes came out for another not-so-good promo here. Once again, asked Statlander to join the Nightmare Collective. Statlander, without saying anything, she did the old finger wag that you remember Dikembe Mutombo of the NBA used to do. She did a deal like that. We see Melanie Cruz and Awesome Kong come down the aisle to block her from leaving. That distracted Statlander along enough because once she turned around back to Brandi, she got caught right in the eye with the heel of Brandi's shoe, so she's, favoring an eye injury here, so that's what we had there, and then they came out to check on her afterwards, so that's where it ended pretty much. We had a backstage segment. We saw Shawn Spears and Tully Blanchard talking about tag teams, and they're saying that tag teams is where all the money is because AEW is big on tag team wrestling, which we do see a lot of, I will say. So Shawn Spears wants Tully Blanchard to find the right tag team person for him, so we'll see where that goes from here. Your main event for the night is for the AEW World Tag Team titles. We had SCU defending the titles against the Young Bucks. There was a Young Bucks video package that led into the match, saying that they had failed to live up to the expectations of being the best tag team in the world. I thought the match was fine. Good stuff here. In the end, Matt Jackson was ultimately the one who fell victim here. SCU actually successfully defended the titles after a good match here. Matt Jackson got caught into the SCU later, and that was it. So SCU retained the title, which I had no issue with. I saw a number of people thinking that maybe the Young Bucks should have won the titles here as they were going off the air and going into 2020. I actually didn't mind SCU retaining. I thought that was the right play, and I thought it was too early to take the belts off SCU. So after the match, the Dark Order's creepers surrounded the ring. We see Evil Uno and Stu Grayson walk out and said they weren't out to offer the teams the join, but instead it was an initiation. The creepers go into the ring. They do a beatdown on both teams. We see Alex Reynolds and John Silver now as part of the creepers. And ultimately we see Kenny Omega, Christopher Daniels, Cody, and Dustin Rhodes all come out to try to make the saves, but the numbers game was too much. The heels stood tall. Reynolds and Silver were given their mess as the show went off the air, and Uno did a deal where he gouged Matt Jackson in the mouth to draw out because he was bleeding, and he put his full hand into his mouth to show the blood on his hands. So that was kind of creepy in its own right, and that's how they went off the air. So I mean, again, I saw people crapping on this. I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to get the Dark Order over here, trying to get them established as this cult heel faction, I guess. I don't know. It was kind of weird. It was kind of a different way to go off the air, but that's what we had there. So that was AEW Wednesday Night Dynamite. It took place from the American Bank Center of Corpus Christi, Texas. Let's go on to NXT. Of course, it took place from Full Sail University, Winter Park, Florida. They opened their show, okay, commercial free, but it took a little while to get it going here. NXT title match kicked off the show. We had Adam Cole, baby, taking on Finn Baszler here. This was a great match. Fast-paced stuff here from both these guys. Baszler ultimately gained the upper hand on the champion. Cole was able to turn the tables around. He took out Baszler's knee on the outside with a super kick. Baszler then sold the knee injury for the rest of the match. And then ultimately he missed a coup de grace attempt as well. And then ultimately he would connect with a coup de grace on the Cole before setting him up for the 1916. And then we see an unexpected surprise because at the top of the ramp we saw Johnny Gargano entering the arena. He made his return here. So that distraction was enough for Adam Cole to hit a low blow on Baszler, and then he ultimately hit the last shot in the end to retain the title in what I thought was a very good match. Post-match, Gargano made his way down to the ring. He picked up a steel chair along the way, and then he eventually went after Finn Baszler with these chair shots, and then he just went to work on him, and then ultimately Finn Baszler was able to escape through the crowd. So looks like Johnny Gargano is back, so that's some good stuff we have there coming up. So just some incredible stuff seeing Johnny Gargano back at the end of the year. Good stuff here. Next up, we have Damien Priest taking on Killian Dane. Of course, Damien Priest is back. Of course, he's back after missing some time because of these injured ribs that he has. And that was the idea for this match here. Killian Dane went after the ribs here. Priest did a lot of selling for the ribs here throughout the match here. Good stuff here. Ultimately, Priest was able to avoid a Vader Bomb attempt near the end here by getting his knees up, and then Damien Priest hit the Reckoning and got the win on Killian Dane. So a nice win for Damien Priest, making his return in a good physical matchup here. It was announced that the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic will be returning in 2020 with the field of teams to be announced on the New Year's Day edition of NXT in 2 weeks, so we'll have that coming up. Singles competition was up next here. Cameron Grimes taking on Kushida here. I thought this was good stuff here. A lot of back and forth here from these guys. Good stuff. Cameron Grimes actually got the surprise win here. He ultimately won in the end to get some retribution. He won with the cave-in stomp on the Kushida and got the win here. So a nice surprise here to have Cameron Grimes get a nice big win against Kushida. Women's action was up next. We had Io Shirai taking on Santana Garrett. This was a pretty short match to the point to make Io Shirai look strong here. She won in pretty short order with a moonsault here. to keep her strong here. And Santana Garrett at this point just seems to be a jobber at this time, so it's unfortunate. She has talent, but Io Shirai is clearly the bigger star. We got hype for a Worlds Collide event that's coming up on Royal Rumble weekend, which led to the next match. We had Pete Dunne taking on Travis Banks here. This was, I thought this was a pretty good match. Again, good stuff here from these guys hyping up this Worlds Collide event, which ultimately saw Pete Dunne win in the end after hitting 2 bitter ends, and then the second one actually wound up winning the match. So Pete Dunne getting a nice win here. We had a Dakota Kai backstage interview with Kathy Kelly, I'm trying to spit that out, backstage, where she revealed that she had 8 staples in her head after being put through the tables last week, which was a botch. She missed the one table. That's what caused the stitches, or staples, I should say. Dakota Kai won, she was still saying that she still won the match, which she did, and she'll continue to talk about that until she's the next NXT Women's Champion. And it's a nice segue because we go right into that main event, which is for the NXT Women's title. We had Shayna Baszler defending the title against Rhea Ripley. This was an awesome match, an outstanding match. This was easily the best match between both shows this week. Rhea got the early jump on Shayna Baszler. Of course, Jessamine Duke and Maria Shafira tried to get involved here. Ultimately, they got taken out with a somersault off the apron by Rhea Ripley. And then ultimately, Shayna Baszler was able to capitalize by stomping Rhea Ripley's arm into the steel steps, and then she just went to work on her. Baszler continued to target the arm for a lot of the match, and then Rhea Ripley ultimately was able to gain the momentum, but we saw a shotgun dropkick Baszler right into the referee. We had a ref bump here. Once that had happened, Baszler got caught into a riptide by Rhea Ripley, but of course there was no referee to count the fall. She had the title won. We see the 2 women battle on the outside. Baszler got a chair into the ring. Shortly after that, she planted Ripley with a DDT onto the chair. But, the Ripley's credit, she was able to kick out of town at 2 after the referee had gone up. She was able then to get the Kurfita clutch on her, but Ripley, trying to fight it off. She grabbed the referee by the shirts, which I thought was going to be a disqualification because she actually put her hand on the official. But that was basically enough to get Rhea Ripley to give her one more surge, and she was ultimately able to counter out of it. And then ultimately, they worked their way up to the top rope where Rhea Ripley caught Shayna Baszler with an outstanding looking avalanche riptide and nailed it beautifully. 1, 2, 3, she got the win, and Rhea Ripley is the new NXT Women's Champion, ending the 415-day run from Shayna Baszler here. Just incredible stuff here. The crowd filed into the ring here with talent from the back as well. It was a cool visual. 23-year-old Rhea Ripley winning her first NXT Women's title. I thought this was outstanding. This was exactly how they needed to go off the air. And it was just a great scene, and Rhea Ripley. People have really taken to liking her, and she deserves this opportunity, and I'm glad. Look, Shayna Baszler, she needed to lose at some point, and I felt this was the right play and right time to do it. So Rhea Ripley is the new NXT Women's Champion. Which show won for the week? Which show gets my recommendation of the week? It's easily NXT for me. I thought from start to finish they just had the better action. They bookended with 2 outstanding title matches. The stuff in the middle, I thought for the most part was pretty good as well. AEW, they had a very good opening tag match, and I thought the main event match was fine. But other than that, I didn't like most of the stuff in the middle though for AEW. I thought NXT was just better. So NXT is my pick of the week. So through 12 weeks, I have NXT with 7 picks and AEW with 5 picks. And since we got the ratings, then let's talk about the ratings. They are now out for this week, and it showed something very interesting. NXT won for the week here. They beat AEW in total viewership. They beat them 795,000 viewers to 683,000 viewers. NXT was up 2% this week, while AEW was down, I think it was about 15-16%. And for the first time as well, NXT actually beat AEW in the key 18-49 demo. NXT had 344,000 adult viewers, while AEW had 319,000 viewers. So they beat them by 8% in the key demo, and they beat them by 16% in the total viewership. So a nice way for NXT, and you figured NXT had the win here anyways because they had the bookend and great title matches here, so not a big surprise NXT won. But still, overall, through 12 weeks, AEW leads 8 wins to 3 wins for NXT, and then the 1 tie we had last week. So that's what we have with NXT getting the win in the ratings and the key demo this week. Let me know down in the comment section below what your favorite moment from Wednesday's action was, and we'll see you in 2020 for the next episode of the Wednesday Night Wrestling Blitz. Bye for now, everyone.